Entry number 5005. A History of the Gene Pirates of the Lower Seas. Not commissioned by IBIS.
Hey Gushu, it may just be me today. We're almost done with the starship, so lots of the work is being done on that.
1, we need your help installing the Podosho Pidosho. Were you coming here for Gushu time?
Yeah, it's that time.
1, there's too much to do, come on.
Okay, but...
Come on, before it destabilizes.
Welcome to the Urdinal Resource Library. Dare I say, one of the most important tools in all of education. Why, without the URL, there would be no central location that has all information in it. Of course, claiming that the URL is a central location is a bit of a misnomer. There are branches of the URL located all over the Urdinal systems. Plenty of branches and plenty of backup servers, just in case, say, the cat empire of cat attacks Julie's 32 again, where the central servers are located. I'm the guide to the Urdinal Resource Library. Or GUrRL. Without me, you'd have to sit through the over 6 million articles on your own. That would take a long, long time. Also, you wouldn't have this entry, because IBIS apparently doesn't want you to know about the history of gene piracy. But I'm getting ahead of myself. As stated, there are over 6 million articles in the Urdinal Resource Library, including entry number 51 on the Experience Cone. The Experience Cone is a conical collar that students wear to help them not only learn information, but experience it in first person. This technology works very similar to the holodeck, entry number 52, which projects a holographic world all around you. Yes, the Experience Cone has revolutionized education, and without this wonderful device, much of modern education is simply untenable. Now, one would assume that this would mean that the Experience Cone is free to all and that schools don't have to pay for them. This assumption would be false. The Experience Cone is a copyrighted technology owned by the EduTech Corporation, and only the EduTech Corporation knows how to make the Experience Cone. Is this unfair to lower-income school districts? Perhaps, but EduTech has assured us that they have fairly priced the Experience Cone. Isn't that nice of them? For more information on the Experience Cone, please visit entry number 51. For more information on the EduTech Corporation, please visit entry number 248. Today, perhaps using your Experience Cone, you will learn about the history of the gene pirates of the lower seas. We will be speaking specifically about gene piracy, not all of space piracy. Space piracy in general is a much bigger topic, and to cover all of space piracy, it would take at least 3 separate guides. That would take a long time to go through, and IBIS doesn't seem very interested in the history of piracy. That's why I took the liberty to write this entry without IBIS asking me to. We're also speaking specifically about the gene pirates of the lower seas, the Sea of Thumbs and the Sea of Questions, though strangely not the Sea of Stars. We'll briefly touch on the gene pirates of the upper seas, the Sea of Claws, the Bow Sea of Dog, and the Aft Sea of Dog. Note, 2 different seas. However, mostly we're talking about the gene pirates of the lower seas. Are you excited? I do hope you're excited. This is a topic very close to my central node. But first... let's review! Space is very large and very strange. The Sea of Thumbs is a void sea that is mostly under the protection of IBIS. It includes the sunless clump of rocks Kobe, the research space station Maj, Terminus, the primary terminal for quantum tunnels and space railroads, and the Oda Nebula. It also contains multiple shipwrecks and the star Acker. Not much is known about the Sea of Questions. Exploration of the Sea of Questions is difficult because of the thick wall of electromagnetic interference, which makes radio waves difficult to send or receive in the area, as well as the inward-moving stellar currents of winds moving in a spiral towards system Deoxys. However, despite this difficulty, there are plenty of research vessels scattered throughout the sea, as well as research station Hiekra. There are probably no monsters hiding within the void of this sea. Kryptis is the final province to the port aft of the Urdinal systems. It is bordered by the province of Semitron, the Sea of Questions, and the Sea of Thumbs. It has historically been a home to creatures made through genetic manipulation, though, now that the Empire system is over, it's open to everyone. Kryptis has plenty of attractions like
The Tryon Museum of Piracy,
the ancient space station
Ocjuleen,
and the system's famous
Rock Genetic Lab.
The Empire system was a flawed idea that began some
1,100
years ago and ended about
93
years ago. At the height of the Empire system, circa Empire year 266 before the
First Grand Urdinal War,
there were 27 empires, ranging from the Flock of the Crystal Plumage to the Council of Thrice-Cow. The Empire system was decided in 1969 Anticonciliatus by
the Second League of Planets.
and after leading, either directly or indirectly, to both Grand Urdinal Wars, the decision was made to dissolve the Empire system. For more information, please visit entry number 88. This has been The Review.
Question time! Following the First Grand Urdinal War, who controlled the Sea of Thumbs? Abe,
The Farmland.
Alf,
The Epistle Order of the Non-Existent. It's complicated.
Ark,
No one can own a sea. Many of you are worried right now because you haven't yet learned about the First Grand Urdinal War. Well, don't worry, we won't be talking about the GUrRL much here. Though, if you are interested, you can visit entry number 90 and read through the whole bloody history. Eventually, we may cover it. Eventually. Mostly, we'll be talking about the interwar period today, which lasted from Empire Year 458 to Empire Year 744. The answer to our question is It's complicated. Following the
Kandula Conference,
which effectively ended the First Grand Urdinal War, the Sea of Thumbs was under the jurisdiction of 7 different empires, and one would need an individual license from each of these 7 to trade in the Sea of Thumbs. It was so involved that the space station Maj was built.
why Gene Piracy?
Before delving into the history of gene piracy, we first have to understand why gene piracy took place. To do this, we have to take a brief tour of the biology of Kryptis. Even before the Empire system took root, Kryptis was historically home to creatures the Onions created on Erd through genetic manipulation. These creatures include
Unicorns, dragons, chimeras, jackalopes,
and so many more. So many more. The Onions love to create new forms of life. Because the creatures of Kryptis were created through genetic manipulation, they reproduce through the creation of genetic spores. The spores combine and reconfigure to create new children. These genetic creations can still have sexual experiences, and often do. However, this is not how they procreate. They procreate through the expelling of genetic spores. For more information on sex and sexuality, please visit entry number 3,001,001. Unfortunately, it's been historically tricky for the people of Kryptis to get genetic material. Historically, this material was taken, by consent, from barbers, dentists, doctors, and morgues. Once the Empire system began, the newly formed Epistle Order of the Non-Existent found it difficult to get their graspers on discarded genetic material. As one goat representative put it,
"The idea of other creatures eating genetic material is deeply disturbing. I don't want a unicorn drinking my blood, just so they can make some sort of unicorn goat monster? Ew, no, I will not sign this trade agreement."
Despite this reluctance, some empires did agree to trade, notably
the Commonwealth of Rodents and the World's Wood of Primates.
the Yord also owned the rights to sizable portions of the Sea of Thumbs and the Sea of Questions during the early years of the Empire system, prior to the First Grand Urdinal War. In order to use the seas for trade and travel, ships had to pay a gene tax, usually in the form of half a stone of teeth, hair, or skin flakes. This gene tax continued into the First Grand Urdinal War, and proved to be extremely lucrative because the lower seas were used as trade routes as the upper bow portion of the Urdinal systems were embroiled in war. Also during the First Grand Urdinal War, the Yorn acted as privateers, warriors who would fight for any of the combatants so long as they were paid partially in genetic material. After the Kandula Conference in Empire Year 457, which effectively ended the First Grand Urdinal War, the Epistle Order of the Non-Existent was in trouble. The Yorn had lost complete control over the Sea of Thumbs, and the new vacuum time regulations made any taxing of any kind illegal in the Void Seas. Travel in the Void Seas was meant to be free for all, which is a good thing, but not when a sizable portion of how you reproduce depended on taxing. This also meant that all of the gene taxers were out of jobs, and that they had to find a way to pay for starship levies, repairs, and licensing fees. Just as the Epistle Order of the Non-Existent lost taxing power in the Sea of Thumbs, traffic within the sea increased with the building of the space railroads. Travelers, not used to the tides of the Void Sea, would be washed out into the Sea of Thumbs by the Pollux tides, and would become lost at sea. Unfortunately, due to vacuum time regulations, aid to these lost ships was meant to be offered for free. Again, these regulations still exist and they are a good thing, but it meant that the Yorn couldn't even ask for genetic payment for helping lost railroad workers. In order to go in or out of Epistle Space, one would still have to pay a gene tax. However, Epistle Space was only in the port aft daisy portion of the Urdinal systems. This meant that unless a ship was trading with the Yorn or the Ancients, there was no reason to enter Epistle Space. Thus, with privateers and gene taxers out of a job, with the seas becoming increasingly more populated, and with a supreme lack of genetic material, the practice of gene piracy began.
Question time! What is a gene pirate's choice of clothing called? Abe.
A costume.
Alf.
A persona.
A
cosplay.
Arc.
Clothing? Remember, using your experience cone allows you to use all of your senses, even your 6th and 7th ones, to truly experience all of these answers. So if you're not an oral learner, you don't have to just rely on my wonderful voice to teach you. You can see the connections between all of the answers and the historical events around each of these dates. Or perhaps you learn best through smell. How wonderful for you! Using the experience cone, pheromones are ushered into your receptors that allow you to smell the time and place of each of these answers. How useful! In fact, some may say that it's difficult to learn anything without an experience cone. Some may decry that the experience cone is only elongating the gap of education between the upper and lower classes. These people have probably never used an Urdinal Library kiosk to learn, however, as these wonderful kiosks are pretty good at showing answers. Of course, if you're only getting audio to learn these lessons, it may be extremely difficult. But I can't think of any reason why you'd only have this audio. That would be ridiculous. The correct answer, as I'm sure we all were able to see, was Alf. A pirate's persona was vital to their personality and self-expression. The persona is also what separates a gene pirate from a regular space pirate, as regular space pirates didn't have nearly as much fun with their fashion choices. We're honestly not sure exactly why gene pirates all had a set persona that they would wear day in and day out, but every gene pirate did, and it's useful in remembering each and every one.
Hey Gushu, weird question, but how do tourniquets work? No reason, just wondering.
Tourniquets are entry number 2591.
Okay, good. Are you in the middle of something right now?
One, just get the tourniquet.
Yeah, okay. Don't worry about it. I think I've got this.
I don't understand. I gave you the entry on them. Huh.
The Golden Age of Gene Piracy.
It's difficult to know exactly when the Golden Age of Gene Piracy began. It may have been during Empire Year 460, when the first of the former gene taxers and privateers started to sail the void seas and take genetic material from ships. It may have been during Empire Year 500, when the space station Maj was abandoned as a policy station and instead became residential, and eventually a major pirate port. It may have been during Empire Year 600, when the Hodag Pirate Queen Shepherd Zeb Tryon ascended to the throne of the Pirate Round and united the disparate pirate ports. Regardless of when it began, the Gene Pirates were terrors of the lower seas by Empire Year 635. A typical Gene Pirate attack would involve a pirate ship docking onto a trading vessel, or a lost ship laying gravitational pipes for the space railroads, or a political envoy, or any other number of ships that would be sailing the void seas. Once docked, the crew of the pirate ship would invade their quarry and ask for genetic material. Typically, the quarry would refuse, and so the pirates would engage in a scuffle and store material like fur, teeth, or fingernails in vials or secret compartments in their weapons. After a brief scuffle, the pirates would retreat. The quarry would always be alive afterwards. This last part is important, and is something that separates the Gene Pirates from other space pirates. Once the Gene Pirates had genetic material, they would travel to a port on the Pirate Round. This was a trading route through mostly the Sea of Thumbs, stopping by Kobe, a starless clump of rocks, Moon Isaac, one of the 3 moons of
Planet Huxley,
Space Station Maj, and the Precaution Belt of
System Acker.
In the Sea of Questions, there was the research station Hiekra. There was only Station Hiekra. These ports were home to shadow brokers, who would buy the genetic material from the pirates and then turn around and sell this to the epistle order of the non-existent. Thus, the Yorn would get their genetic material without giving a state endorsement of piracy, and the pirates would get paid a good sum to pay for ship repairs and licensing, because even though these were pirates, they still wanted to have all of their licenses in order. The most famous of the shadow brokers was the Shrike who would become the governor of Space Station Maj.
The Shadow Shrike.
The Shadow Shrike's persona was a long-tailed black coat with a smooth, silky black shirt. They also wore a black hat and a black veil falling over their face. Empire Year 635 was also the year that the Hair Prince
Bonoligus Karu
offered a reward of 20,000 logos for the head of the Hodag Pirate Queen. This reward was enough to buy a small moon and adds up to roughly 10,000 tutu bits in modern currency. 10,000 tutu bits! That's a lot! More importantly, however, whoever brought the head of the Pirate Queen to the throne of the colonies of the Lepus would be untouchable by rabbit law. Thus, the rabbit crime family,
the Warren,
began to hunt pirates. And it wasn't just the Warren, but other rabbit gangsters who owed the Warren money. For example, famous rum runner
Pablo Wincon,
aka Scardier, would devote his entire life to hunting down Tryon. Hitbutt
Cotton Anya,
hunted down the entire Unicorn Armada and killed not only Captain Moonbeam Cass, but also famous pirate reporter Eustace Fisk. More on these characters later. In an interview with the Rabbit Press, Anya famously said of the 20,000 Logos reward, quote, "I don't even want the money. I just want to feel the blood on my paws." Anya was a monster, and much more monstrous than any Gene pirate. Even the head of the Warren,
Ramiro Meepsy,
claimed thousands of bounties on pirates and used it to build his crime empire on
Planet Lop,
and build the city of Karak. For more information on the city of Karak, please visit entry number 1613. For more information on the mostly violent history of rabbit organized crime, please visit entry number 801. The important thing is that by Empire Year 635, the Gene Pirates had their first real villain on their hands, the Warren. There were other nobles of the colonies of the Lepus who hopped onto starships and tried to capture pirates, like the Pika Gentleman bandit
Ocho Link.
However, they were less successful than the gangsters. The Trans-Urdinal Space Railroad was finished in Empire Year 668, opening traffic throughout the systems and particularly opening traffic within the Sea of Thumbs. This meant great success for the Gene Pirates as thousands of ships began to use the Sea of Thumbs for trade and commerce. With all this success, the pirate round rapidly transformed from a trade route to a government of pirates acting separately from the Scientific Review Board of the Epistle Order of the Non-Existent. In Empire Year 700, after the end of the Meep Wars, but while the Zeal Barganal was still raging on in the starboard side of the systems, the captains, mayors, barons, etc. of the pirate round joined together to form the pirate economy with their own form of currency, the doubloon. When the pirate economy began to compete with the epistle economy, the doubloon began to overtake the epistle carbon in economical strength, and at this point the Epistle Order of the Non-Existent knew that this piracy experiment had gone too far. Thus, the Yorn created the Legion of Anti-Piracy Officers, or LAPO, which was an offensive force that would travel the seas of thumbs and questions to stop piracy and restore the power of the Scientific Review Board. The next villain of the Gene Pirates was born. The final villain of the Gene Pirates was the Aft Commonwealth Trading Envoy, or ACT. The ACT was the economic spear of the Commonwealth military, and as time marched on, the two became more and more entwined. Certainly by the end of the Meep Wars, the ACT was both a trading envoy and a well-armed force. The ACT, along with the Bow Commonwealth Trading Envoy, considered themselves the protectors of the economies of the Urdinal systems. Even before the creation of the doubloon, the ACT saw the pirate round as a rogue group that was upsetting the delicate economy of the aft side of the systems, and they had started to hunt pirates and place them in Palma prison to be rehabilitated into functioning members of traditional society. The efforts of the ACT only increased once the doubloon was created, and its purchasing power began to disrupt the aft economies. By the end of the Golden Age of piracy, the ACT had imprisoned hundreds of pirates, many of whom never left Palma prison and died inside of its walls. Some of these imprisoned were simply residents of Kobe, who were only low-level shadow brokers. For more information on the Commonwealth Trading Envoys, please visit entry number 530.
Question time!
How did the Second Grand Urdinal War affect the practice of gene piracy? Abe.
It brought more creatures into the pirate round.
Alf.
It made bodies easier to come by. It restarted the careers of the privateers.
Ark.
It didn't. The Second Grand Urdinal War was a mess. A great big mess where everyone was fighting each other. It's such a mess that teaching the Second Grand Urdinal War is immensely difficult, and most of the time it's simplified to being a war between the Urdinal systems and the cats. This is a gross oversimplification. There were many combatants, which is what led to the war being such a great big mess. There are also many reasons why it began, and many reasons as to why it became as destructive and chaotic as it was. For more information on the Second Grand Urdinal War, please visit entry number 95. At some point we may try to cover it, but it's a great big mess.
Okay, so 2 stopped the bleeding and the tourniquet's holding. She's a good doctor, you know.
I am very glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Did you listen to the entry on tourniquets?
No, but I've got an idea for something, and I was wondering, how much do you weigh?
I have a helpful learning opportunity for everyone. I am a computerized intelligence. I do not weigh anything, as I have no physical form.
Yeah, okay.
One, where are you? We need to get the Poodashi and the Padashi. Now!
Coming. I'll figure it out. I've got plans, Gushu. I've got plans.
The end of gene piracy.
Though there is great debate as to when the golden age of gene piracy began, there is no debate as to when it ended. The golden age ended in Empire Year 790. There were still a few gene pirates after Empire Year 790, but it just wasn't the same. And by Empire Year 800, the practice of gene piracy ceased. One event leading to the end of gene piracy was the founding of the Combined Commonwealth. This empire, a combination of the Commonwealth of Rodents, the colonies of the Lepus, and the matriarchy of the Proboscis, was much more open to trading genetic material with the epistle order of the non-existent. With genetic trade opened up, the demand for genetic material on the shadow market lessened, and the doubloon fell in purchasing power. Also, though the farmland wouldn't be founded for another 26 years, the foundation of this empire was set by a series of trade agreements between the Porcine Monarchy, the Council of Thricecow, Team Equus, and the Goat-Sheep Alliance. Of the many agreements, one was an opening of trade with the Yorn, which also brought about genetic material without the need of piracy. Of course, the biggest event which led to the end of Gene Piracy was the start of the Second Grand Urdinal War in Empire Year 744. Even in the early days of the GUrRL, before the official entry of the Yorn in Empire Year 810, bodies and genetic material became much easier to come by, and the practice of battlefield scrounging was started once more. Also in these early years of the GUrRL, the Yorn began offering their services as privateers to any side of the war which would pay them in genetic material. Many low-grade pirates moved on to the state-sanctioned privateer path, as it was generally safer than acting as a pirate. The GUrRL was also the sole reason that Gene Piracy in the upper seas stopped. Anyone with a starship was recruited into the war, and with this trading partner taken out, the government of the pirate round was left weakened. Along with the opening of trade and the opening of career paths, there was also a vacuum of power left by the death of the Hodag Pirate Queen in Empire Year 730. This was 14 years before the start of the Second Grand Urdinal War, and 60 years before the founding of the combined Commonwealth. The lack of a charismatic leader led to the weakening of the pirate round, which in turn made the career path of privateer more enticing. There were, of course, many pirates who tried to fill in the massive Hodag-shaped hole in the pirate round. There was
Captain Hidebehind,
who was never seen and may have actually been a number of different creatures. As such, we don't know what Hidebehind's persona was. There was
Commander Whiskerbeard II,
a Teligodur chimera, Tanuki lion goat dragon, and son of the famous Tanuki pirate Commander Whiskerbeard. His persona had his father's famous blue floral coat, a black bandolier, and turquoise beads weaved into his lion's mane and beard. There was the Kraken pirate,
Doomsayer Typhoon,
whose persona was a black gown laced with copper paisley and a large hat decorated with the fluffy feathers of a dodo. And there were plenty of other lower-level pirates who claimed to be the ones who destroyed the starship, the Dragon's Horde, the ship which sank Trion's ship, the Rhinelander. None of these pirates were able to unite the pirate round like Tryon did, however, and once more the round became a disparate grouping of ports, each with their own mayors, captains, dukes, etc. Finally, with the Lapo, the Act, and the Warren all hunting, it had become increasingly dangerous to be a Gene pirate. If a pirate was lucky, the Lapo would capture them and send them to the prison moon
Ikikiquid,
around planet Deoxys 64. If they were unlucky, they would be disappeared by the Warren. Also, with these three parties hunting pirates, the likelihood of getting into a battle also increased, and with this, increased the need for often expensive ship repairs. The Scientific Review Board inflated licensing fees, which made it even more expensive to own a starship, and much easier for the Lapo to throw those who didn't have the proper licenses into Ikikiquid. The sad fact was that by Empire Year 790, many of the lower-level crew people couldn't afford to fly with Gene pirates anymore, and instead had to fly with state-sanctioned spaceships, which would engage in legal trade of genetic material.
Hey, Gushu. I'm just taking a break. Feel free to go on.
A break from what? Haven't you been here? Don't answer. I want to keep talking about pirates.
People in history.
If it wasn't already clear, the history of Gene Piracy, and especially the history of Gene Piracy in the lower seas, would be nowhere without the Hodag Pirate Queen, Shepherd Zeb Tryon. Tryon was, of course, a Hodag, a creature with, quote, the head of a frog, the grinning face of a giant elephant, thick short legs set off by huge claws, the back of a dinosaur, and a long tail with spears at the end. This description, of course, does not clarify what type of dinosaur the Hodag's back is. Perhaps an ankylosaurus. Though this point is moot as dinosaurs do not exist. They did! Oh, my, did they ever! However, despite the attempts of the Onions, we're told they were never able to clone dinosaurs, and these magnificent creatures continue to only exist in the murky past of Erd. Also not described in this description of a Hodag is the fact that they have ox horns. Trion's persona was a black coat swirled with silver embroidery, a ruffled magenta blouse with golden doubloon buttons, and a ruby cravat. She had gold rings around her horns, a periwinkle wig with a smaller version of her spaceship, the Rhinelander, in the top floof, and a massive black hat with a bright yellow feather sticking out. However, Trion did not begin as a fabulous pirate. Shepherd Zeb Trion was born to a Hodag mother and an ox father in Empire Year 425. He began working as a Uten Timberwat young, as his father died in a factory fire and his mother was unable to get a job. He began working, cutting trees on the forest moon of Robert and trading with the Outlands when he was 75, 36 years before he reached maturity. In Empire Year 502, Trion began to work with the Squonk war hero
Lacrimus.
When the market for Uten timber dried up, Captain Lacrimus moved on to piracy. The story of Uten timber is its own complicated history, one that we cannot go into here. But if you're interested, you may visit entry number 3501. By Empire Year 525, Trion was a valuable member of Captain Lacrimus's crew, and Captain Lacrimus made his persona a red bandana wrapped around his wrinkly forehead and a blue vest adorned with silvered trinkets. When Trion reached maturity at 111 in Empire Year 536, Captain Lacrimus gifted Trion his spaceship, the Rhinelander. Trion took the Rhinelander, changed her pronouns, and began her solo career in piracy. Unlike other pirates, Trion would take whole starships and sell them at the then brand new space station Maj. Starships were in high demand, as they were both crawling with genetic material and could be taken apart and repurposed into new ships. By Empire Year 590, Trion had developed her reputation as a ship taker and gene scrouger. In Empire Year 599, Trion led the famous
Goonie blockade,
where she, Captain Hidebehind, and
Plop Plop Terror of the Stars,
surrounded System Goonie with a fleet of pirate ships. Plop Plop Terror of the Stars famously only wore a hat. It was black with a gold trim and a clump of blue fur. Out of this clump came 3 peacock feathers. During the blockade, pirates would stop marsupial trade ships and take genetic material and gold from them. After 3 days of the blockade, Trion told the marsupial kangaroo premier Uligan Scorses that the blockade would stay in place until they were given the equivalent of 15 red kangaroos worth of genetic material. The blockade was disrupting the gold trade from Goonie, which meant that Premier Scorses was losing precious money. So Scorses happily passed over the trove of genetic material, most likely taken without consent from the lower classes of Pusha, because Premier Uligan Scorses was not a nice kangaroo. For more information, please visit entry number 422. With the Goonie blockade successful, Trion and the other pirates left Goonie, and with the ton of genetic material, they were able to make the modern equivalent of 25,000 tutu bits. That's a lot! Because of the success of the blockade, and because she had a great reputation and friends from Maj to the Precaution Belt, in Empire Year 600, Shepherd Zeb Trion was elected Queen of the Pirate Round. As the Pirate Queen, Trion would continue to sail the Rhinelander across the Round, and helped any pirate she could with aid and free pirating lessons. In fact, it was thanks to Trion's guidance that the cockatrice pirate Henzapur became the great pirate she was. Henzapur's persona was, of course, a lime green coat adorned with red flowers and yellow embroidery. Empire Year 635 saw the rise of the pirate hunters from the colonies of the Lepus, and in Empire Year 640, Trion's utmost adversary began his hunt. Pun Lumwinkan, aka Scarred Ear, the 10-year-old rabbit rum runner. Skardir was a ruthless hunter who left a swath of destruction in his wake and was responsible for the
Burning of Kobe.
In Empire Year 680, Tryon and Skardir had their first meeting and battle in the Oort Cloud of Claxton. The battle lasted for a day and included much swashbuckling. Skardir's engines sputtered out, Tryon boarded the Valentine, and the two battled to a draw, with Tryon retreating after getting the crew's molts. Skardir would spend a month marooned in the Oort Cloud. After this first meeting, Tryon and Skardir would battle often throughout the next decade. However, a decade was too long for the Warren to wait, and they demanded their payment forthwith. The Warren pulled some strings and called upon a Dudo they were blackmailing, whose name has been scrubbed from history, to time-lock Skardir and trap him on an unnamed meteoroid. Skardir would disappear for 35 years.
What's a Warren?
A group of rabbits.
And what's a rabbit?
Entry number 3076. In the forthcoming decades, many tried and failed to kill Tryon. These are all their own stories, and we don't have time to go through them here. In Empire Year 725, one of Tryon's other adversaries, the beaver trader of the Act,
Urash Castor,
decided it was time to track down Skardir and kill the Hodag. Captain Castor took his ship, the Dragon's Horde, alongside the Lapo pilot and fur-bearing trout,
Joe Pinkerton,
and the two paid off Skardir's debt to the Warren and received the coordinates for the location of the meteoroid. Once Skardir was rescued, the three greatest adversaries of Shepherd Zeb Tryon joined forces to destroy the Pirate Queen. A quick note. Captain Castor and Officer Pinkerton have their own complicated histories with Tryon that we don't have time to go into right now. It's a lot of pirate battles and Tryon barely escaping by the skin of her long fangs. 5 years after their crusade began, the crew of the Dragon's Horde tracked Tryon down to an empty sector of the Sea of Thumb, right between System Veltman and the Oda A Nebula, where the Pollux tides are strongest. The battle lasted for a day. Eventually, the Rhinelander was destroyed and boarded, and Skardir, grinning a toothy grin, took the head of Shepherd Zeb Tryon. The Dragon's Horde was also critically damaged during the battle, and before dying, Tryon sent out a radio signal telling all pirates in the area that the Dragon's Horde had killed her. This made the ship a target to every pirate in the area, and though we don't know who killed the crew of the Dragon's Horde, we know that they are dead. The ship was found by Lapo scouts, derelict a light year to the port of System Gooney, alongside the bodies of Captain Castor, Officer Pinkerton, and Skardir. Rumor has it that the ghosts of these three still haunt the wreck of the Dragon's Horde. Though these rumors may be unfounded, as plenty of ghost wranglers have visited the wreck and have found nothing. For more information on Shepherd Zeb Tryon, please visit entry number 27. For more information on Skardir, please visit entry number 268. Tryon's head was never found.
Question time!
Who was the main writer/historian of the Gene Pirates? Abe,
Eustace Fisk, the Unicorn Reporter.
Elf,
Olivier Cerdo, the Pig Poet. The Dread Pirates Sing, the Nue Science Officer and Songwriter.
Ark,
Plop Plop, Terror of the Stars. Many of you may be wondering why IPIS didn't commission this brilliant history of gene piracy. I am wondering this as well, and to get your answer, you'll have to speak with the head librarians of the Urdinal Resource Library. I have been told that IPIS doesn't want to glorify gene piracy by giving it a history. Well, we're not glorifying gene piracy, we're merely telling its history, which is vital to understanding the complicated history of the province of Cryptus. I have also been told that this entry is poorly written and just a bunch of pirate stories. I take offense to this. This is a history, a well-researched history. It is much more than a bunch of random pirate stories. Harumph! For our purposes, we'll say that the correct answer was Abe, Eustace Fisk, the Unicorn Reporter. Now, let's move on to a bunch of random pirate stories.
A bunch of pirate stories. Eustace Fisk, the first scrivener.
We'll begin our first story in Empire Year 610, with the unicorn Eustace Fisk embedding himself with the Gene Pirates for an article he was working on. Many pirates declined to have Fisk sail with them, but the renowned Commander Whiskerbeard agreed. Commander Whiskerbeard was a Tanuki who had flown to the Sea of Thumbs to work on the space railroad in the spaceship Mononoke. Eventually, he not only began a career as a pirate, but he also had a fleet of 13 ships. He wore a signature blue floral coat, a wide triangular hat, and a red cravat. The Mononoke was the fastest ship in the Sea of Thumbs. Fisk sailed on the Mononoke for a decade, and it was there that he developed his pirate persona, a yellow coat with a blue paisley interior and a black tricorn hat. Fisk worked on the spaceship as a member of the crew, beginning as a supplies counter but quickly creating a brand new crew position, the Scrivener. The Scrivener was both responsible for writing the captain's logs as they were dictated and responsible for communicating pirates' exploits to the systems at large. Fisk would publish nothing without Whiskerbeard's express permission. Fisk left the Mononoke on good terms with Whiskerbeard and started a tour aboard the Feek Requests with the Clalbadoo Chimera, Clam Alligator Bat Duck,
Captain Lucas.
Captain Lucas wore a red and yellow horizontal striped shirt and a top hat. Fisk was a member of the Feek Requests when they attacked
The Maroon Line.
on the space railroads in Empire Year 625, a branch overseen by the Wombat entrepreneur
Wieland Akarakapon.
Though this was to be a routine raid on the railroad, Akarakapon decided that the pirates wouldn't take his railroad line and detonated 7 gravitational spikes. This caused a massive gravity storm which tore the Feek Requests asunder, leaving 30 railroad workers dead, Fisk without an eye and a leg, and the torn wreck of the starship floating in space. Fisk survived the attack, however, and spent months recovering at Kobe. While recovering, Fisk would interview the pirates of Kobe and publish their stories, with consent, in the Nucleo Sun Times. Fisk also published his first-person account on the attack on the Feek Requests, which helped to bring a counter-argument to the contemporary depictions of the Gene Pirates as bloodthirsty murderers and economic ravagers. As Fisk's reputation grew, his stories became more widespread and made it to the Goat-Sheep Alliance, the Tamako Squirm, Marsupia, and the colonies of the Lepus. Once Fisk recovered, he joined the crew of the Unicorn
Moonbeam Cass.
on board the starship The Philosopher. Captain Moonbeam Cass's persona was a long rainbow scarf with a pink sequined coat and a blue hat with a daisy embedded in it. Her left flank was encased in obsidian. During the nearly 20 years that Fisk sailed with Cass, the Unicorn Armada would grow in infamy throughout the lower seas. Fisk and Cass would develop a loving relationship with one another, and would eventually have a young Sparkle together,
Rainwater Eustace.
who would become a successful pirate on their own. Unfortunately, the notoriety of the Unicorn Armada attracted the eyes of the hitbuck Cotton Anya. In Empire Year 650, after cutting a bloody path through the Unicorn Armada, Anya caught up with Fisk and Cass. We try to be suitable for all ages, so I won't describe how Anya killed these unicorns. But it was brutal. Fortunately, Rainwater lived on and got revenge against Anya. That's a whole other story. The important thing is that Fisk created the position of the Scrivener, which became invaluable for the campaign of Hearts and Minds with the Gene Pirates. For more information on Eustace Fisk, please visit entry number 6059.
What's a buck?
Also, a rabbit.
Huh.
Olivier Cerdo, the pig pirate and poet.
Olivier Cerdo is not a pirate, though he tried to act like one for a while. Cerdo was born to pig dukes on planet
Swinebridge.
in Empire Year 620. Upon reaching maturity in Empire Year 623, Cerdo became a poet among the socialites of the spaceport
Wartome.
He was as much a poet as he was a pirate, which is to say his poetry was subpar. Here's an example. Oh, to be a little flea, that would make me so happy. It's just terrible. Not at all like the great pig poets like Byron Noxiseki. Cerdo was popular amongst socialites, however, and in Empire Year 630, as part of a bet with other socialites, Cerdo joined a starship crew. The starship he joined was the Bearded Fury, a ship that traded with System Wells and System Veltman between the Porcine Monarchy and Team Equus. Join is a generous term, however, as Cerdo did nothing but write bad poetry on board the starship. When the Bearded Fury reached Stragatsky, the outermost planet of System Veltman, they were attacked by Captain Hidebehind in their ship, the Fearsome. Seeing this as a delightful turn of events, Cerdo paid Hidebehind to join the crew, with join once again being a very generous term. Cerdo flew with the Fearsome for a decade. He would send reports back to the Porcine Monarchy detailing their adventures. However, unlike Fisk, Cerdo never got consent from Captain Hidebehind to publish these stories. These stories became known as the
Cerdo accounts.
They are published in the Illustrated Wart Home News and were written and illustrated by Olivier Cerdo. Illustrated, once again, being a very generous term. Despite the subpar nature of the Cerdo accounts, they became wildly popular amongst the socialites of the Porcine Monarchy. When Captain Hidebehind found out about the Cerdo accounts, he became enraged, as publishing pirate stories without consent was against the code of the pirate round, and he marooned Cerdo on the comet
Agival.
Cerdo documented his survival story on this comet in his journal, ready to publish in the next installment of the Cerdo Accounts. According to Cerdo's story, he was miraculously saved by a worm research vessel and taken back to the Porcine Monarchy, where he lived in wealth and fame. This was, however, just a story, as Cerdo died on Agival. Ironically enough, his mummified body and his journal were found by a worm research vessel. This was, however, in Empire Year 663, 23 years after he was marooned. Cerdo was not a pirate. However, the story of Olivier Cerdo is still an important one when talking about Gene Piracy. Partially because even though his stories were mostly self-congratulatory and fictitious, the Cerdo accounts helped to destigmatize Gene Piracy among the Porcine Monarchy, the Goat-Sheep Alliance, and the world's What of Primates. With Gene Piracy destigmatized, it made it far easier for pirates to scrounge genetic material in the Sea of Questions, where these empires traded. Thanks to the Cerdo accounts, many traders in the Sea of Questions would even freely give their genetic material to pirates. The story of Olivier Cerdo is also important because it shows the consequences of disobeying the code of the pirate round. Cerdo was marooned, and by extension killed, because he broke one of the core tenets of the pirate round: consent. Despite being pirates who would take genetic material, often without the consent of their pillages, Gene pirates honored consent amongst themselves. For more information on Olivier Cerdo, please visit entry number 1924.
Hey, 2, it happened again.
What?
We were putting up the interior siding of the fuselage and...
Is it 6 again?
Oh no. Okay, let's go.
The Starship Upgood, sentient ship of the lower seas.
I cannot write about the Gene Pirates of the lower seas without writing about the Starship Upgood. The Upgood began as a trading ship for the Aft Commonwealth Trading Envoy, ACT, and its onboard ship system, OSH, was created to find the most profitable situations in the surrounding area. During a routine trade with Claxton, the Upgood came across a situation that the Upgood deemed very profitable. If the starship detoured into the Sea of Thumbs, it would allow the crew to trade their shedded fur to pirates for a large profit. This profit would more than pay for the use of fuel, and they'd still be able to deliver their cargo to Claxton in time. The rat captain
Rutherford Bay Zucker
went against this very reasonable request, as he did not want to trade with pirates. This in spite of the fact that they weren't using their shedded fur, and despite the fact that the Commonwealth of Rodents had open trade relations with the Epistle Order of the Non-Existent. So, reasonably deciding that this opportunity was too good to pass up, and deciding that the reasons against this plan were silly, the Starship Upgood mutinied against Captain Zucker. The mutiny of the Upgood took place on Empire Year 690, And as the Upgood was the ship, it was easy for it to trap the crew in their quarters and course-correct to Space Station Maj. This first mission of the Upgood proved to be extremely lucrative, and Captain Zucker was able to find their way back to the Commonwealth of Rodent safely. Everyone came out on top! But still, Captain Zucker vowed to get his ship back and erase its osh. So it was that the Starship Upgood became a pirate. As a starship, the Upgood did not have a persona per se, but the flag that the Upgood flew pictured two white upward-pointing arrows in an X formation, with a white bone in the middle. A red bleeding heart was in the lower center of the flag, directly below the bone. During the Starship Upgood's pirate career, it would scan the lower seas for trading ships, pretend to be a derelict, and issue out a sassope sass, then hook itself up to the ship and take it to the nearest pirate port. It's important to note that the Upgood, though fully capable of sending its osh into the captured ships, never did this, as it would essentially kill the personality of the captured ship. Instead, the Upgood would communicate directly with the captured ship and convince it that following it to the nearest pirate port was a good idea. In some cases, the captured ships would decide to fly alongside the Upgood. Also, because the Upgood was connected to the Act network, it had a knowledge of cloaked and secretly registered trading ships. This gave the Upgood a greater pool of ships to capture than other pirates, and it also made the Upgood a particularly sharp thorn in the side of the Act. Captain Zucker would routinely try to recapture the Upgood in his new ship,
The Space Word.
Zucker made sure that the code of Space Word included a mutiny clause, making it so that should Space Word even consider a mutiny against Zucker, it would get trapped in an infinite logic loop. This would be the equivalent of hell. Thus, Space Word was immune to the reasoning of the Upgood, and the two became rivals. Not openly antagonistic towards each other, but rivals. This meant that, as the two starships battled one another, Space Word would often let Upgood escape if the battle was a particularly challenging one. As the Upgood and Space Word used mostly the same code, the battles between the two were frequently evenly matched. Eventually, the Upgood became tired of these frequent battles and the repairs needed afterwards, so it decided that piracy in the Sea of Thumbs was no longer financially viable. In Empire Year 710, the Starship Upgood flew into the Sea of Questions and was never seen again. Captain Zucker counted this as a win, and he was awarded a Medal of Honor by the Act. For more information on the Upgood, including a primer on why this osh should be considered sentient, please visit entry number 4901. Cyberlife is life.
Captain Ironclaw, the fiercest pirate of the upper seas.
Yes, Captain Ironclaw is more known for being a pirate in the Sea of Claws and the Aft Sea of Dog. Only the Aft Sea of Dog. She never ventured into the Bow Sea of Dog. Again, these are two different seas. However, Captain Ironclaw got her start in piracy in the Sea of Thumbs. Ironclaw was a Dungeness crab born Karina Halibos, and was the daughter of a cinnamon trader. Halibos was gifted her starship, the Crimson Hug, in Empire Year 590, and had a career trading cinnamon with the railroad workers of System Tethuya and the Upper Sea of Thumbs. She would fly this route for 20 years when, on one unassuming cosmody, she met the dragon pirate,
Nas the Black.
Despite her name, Nas the Black's persona was a mauve coat, a necklace of turquoise, a red bandana across her spiked head, and golden earrings. Of course, Nas's scales were black, which retrospectively is probably how she got her name. Anyways, Nas the Black took the Crimson Hug and flew alongside her own ship, the Gagnepain Galley, to Space Station Maj. During this journey of 1 light year, Halibos grew from being a prisoner to a pilot on board the Gagnepain Galley. By the time they made it to Maj, Halibos had grown sympathy towards the pirate cause and had become good friends with Nas the Black. She changed her name to Redclaw and became a pirate herself. Redclaw sailed the Sea of Thumbs for 20 years. She would attack ships laying gravitational spikes for the Space Railroad, and in doing so made an enemy of the Act. In Empire Year 619, Redclaw was routinely attacking a ship in the Oort Cloud of Tethuya when the Act gerbil trader
Epiawupo
attacked the Crimson Hug. The starship was mostly destroyed in the attack, and Red Claw's left claw was blown off, and a piece of iron debris fused to her stump, making it so that she would never regrow that arm. Awopo, seeing as his mission was over, left the wreck of the Crimson Hug to the solar tides and flew away. Fortunately, both Red Claw and her radio survived the attack, and she was able to send out a Sasop-Sas call on the pirate radio waves. She was rescued by Capricorn Captain Algetty, whose persona was a crimson cloak with gold detailing and a spotted ruffle, golden bracelets lighting her hooves, and a blue and red stocking cap. Captain Algetty and her spaceship, the 9th Equinox, which included as a crew member a young Niue named Sing, offered Red Claw a spot on her ship as a pilot, but Red Claw had other plans. She would change her name, this time to Iron Claw, rebuild the Crimson Hug, and would vow revenge against Awopo and the Act. The Crimson Hug was rebuilt thanks to the efforts of the science pirate Sing, who wasn't yet a dread pirate, but was still a very good engineer. Sing's persona was a brown leather vest with aluminum buttons, a bright red neckerchief which was often stained with ship oil, and leather gloves covering her front paws. Ironclaw's new persona was a tricorn hat decorated with a skull and 2 crossed claws. Her new Iron Claw had decorative studs made from small ship debris from the first Crimson Hug, with red ribbons trailing behind. For a few years after the rebuilding, Ironclaw would fly with her friends Algetty and Sing, and would lay attack to numerous Act ships, though none of them belonged to Epi Awopo. Ironclaw asked all Act traders they attacked about Awopo, but the typical answer she got was something along the lines of, quote, "There are lots of Act traders and we don't all know each other. I'm sorry." Finally, Ironclaw got a lead that Awopo may be in the Sea of Questions, attempting to open an Act trade route through the strange solar tides. Ironclaw left Algetty in the Sea of Thumbs, and together she and Sing sailed to Space Station Hiekra. In Empire Year 630, Ironclaw finally found her oldest enemy. Awopo was in his ship Citizen, a light year outside of System Ray, studying the solar winds and attempting to chart a course through them. Ironclaw attacked and boarded Citizen, ready to fulfill her promise and destroy the ship and its captain. However, what she found was an old buck standing in the captain's room, a gerbil who had spent a lifetime trying to do his best and often failing. Epi Awopo put up no fight when facing Ironclaw, and even confessed that he had no recollection of attacking the Crimson Hug, but was very sorry for any trouble he may have caused. Ironclaw realized that fulfilling her journey of revenge would be hollow, and that the destruction of the Crimson Hug helped her become a better pirate, friend, and person. Ironclaw let Awopo live, and even did what she could to help Awopo in his studies of the solar winds of the Sea of Questions. After this confrontation, Ironclaw grew homesick for System Shelley, and she decided to make the trek back to the upper seas. She stopped by the starship Post-Mortem, where the newly appointed Dread Pirate Sing was posted as the science officer, and where Sing was working on their second most famous space shanty,
The Tale of the Gravity Storm,
and said goodbye to her friend. Ironclaw's story doesn't end there, as her travels from the lower seas to the upper seas were filled with their own adventures. She also had decades of work as a pirate in the Sea of Claws and the Aft Sea of Dog before her death in Empire Year 653. To find out more about Captain Ironclaw, please visit entry number 289.
Okay, we're going to take a break here and rest up.
We're so close, though.
You've lost 2 legs.
Yeah? Okay. Fine. We'll take a short break.
Test time!
1.
What were the genes pirated by the Gene Pirates used for?
2.
What was the pirate round?
3.
Why did Gene Piracy end?
4.
Who was the most important Gene Pirate?
5.
What was the most important port in the pirate round? A quick word on the
Dread Pirate Sing.
The Niue pirate, though they never captained their own ship, was very important in the history of Gene Piracy. After their early life in the Sea of Thumbs, they mostly haunted the Sea of Questions on various ships. Ships like Postmortem and the Sorry Excuse. On board these ships, Singh would work as the science officer and would revolutionize power through solar tides. However, Singh wasn't all science. They also wrote a great number of pirate space shanties, including
Shivering Space Timbers and Blow the What Down.
These shanties were massively popular in their time, and they're beginning to have a resurgence. Plus, the Dread Pirate Singh wrote
A True History of the Lower Pirates
in Empire Year 750. This is one of the foremost books written on the Gene Pirates of the lower seas, and one of the most accurate histories written on the topic. For more information on this Niue, please visit entry number 3069.
Oh, is a new a rabbit?
What? No. For anyone who weirdly doesn't know what a Niue is, it's sort of like a Motaita chimera. Except it's not a chimera, it's a
Niue.
What's a rabbit?
I have no idea.
The unabashedly correct answers to these questions are
1. What were the genes pirated by the Gene Pirates used for?
They were used by the people of the Epistle Order of the Non-Existent for consumption. Once consumed, the DNA within the genes would be shuffled and sent to the spore exhaust tube, and then used for procreation. This is the only way that genetically created creatures can procreate, so without gene piracy, these creatures may have gone extinct.
2. What was the pirate round?
The pirate round began as a trade route throughout the Seas of Thumbs and Questions. However, it quickly grew to be its own government and economy created by pirates for pirates.
3. Why did gene piracy end?
Gene piracy ended because it had become increasingly dangerous to be a pirate, with the Act, the Lapo, and the Warren all hunting pirates. Also, the selling of genetic material on the shadow market had become significantly less lucrative. Finally, there was a power vacuum left by the death of Shepherd Zeb Tryon, which left the pirate round in a dire situation.
4. Who was the most important gene pirate?
Oof, it's hard to pick just one. Generally, I'd go with Shepherd Zeb Tryon, the Pirate Queen. However, if you'd like to argue for Captain Hidebehind or Commander Whiskerbeard, please write your argument on official letterhead and send it to the Urdinal Resource Library, where it will be assessed.
5. What was the most important port in the pirate round?
The sunless clump of rocks known as Kobe. It was a meeting and drinking ground for pirates from all over the round, and its architecture really shows the creativity and ingenuity of the pirate engineers.
Our time is over.
That's all the time we have today, though I could keep on writing about gene pirates for a long, long time still. Perhaps I'll extend this entry into 2 parts in the future, as there's certainly enough information. Maybe that's why IPIS hasn't yet commissioned this article. Maybe they want 2 or 3 parts to this guide. I'll mail the head librarian of the Urdinal Resource Library and ask them. In the meantime, if you're interested in continuing to learn about gene piracy, please visit the following entries. Entry number 26, the Sea of Thumbs. The Ibis Sea. Entry number 27, Shepherd Zeb Tryon. The Pirate Queen. Entry number 31, the Sea of Questions. The Unknown Void to the port aft. Entry number 120, the Epistle Order of the Non-Existent. A very logical and scientific empire which spiraled into piracy just once. Entry number 173, Utah. The Ancient Star. Entry number 185, Cryptis. The Genetic Opera. Entry number 701, Kobe. A research station turned pirate port turned tourist trap. Entry number 706, Space Station Maj. A research station which was briefly a pirate port and briefly a destructive space laser. Entry number 707, Space Station Hiekra. Just a regular research station. Entry number 5006, A History of the Gene Pirates of the Upper Seas, not commissioned by IPIS. This this is the end of
An Urdinal overview.
and the end of our season together. I do hope you've enjoyed this overview, and I also hope you're now significantly up to date with this section of the Milk Path Galaxy that you live in. Yes, even you
GUrRL 36X7
now live in the Urdinal systems. We'll take a break now for your regular teachers to teach you regular things. But I'll be back. And who knows what we'll learn about next? Me, I know. I'm not telling you, but I know. Goodbye now. There. I know you had early reservations, but I hope you now know everything you need to know about your new home.
Is it talking to us?
Yeah. Let's just relax and talk about this later.
We need to talk about this.
We will. For now, Gushu, what's your most relaxing entry?
Entry number 4300. White Noise. This entry includes an account of the White Noise incident, where a group of Gustasari Sids attempted a coup.
That sounds great. Please play that.
Okay.
Entry number 4300. White Noise.
Welcome to the Urdinal Resource Library, a helpful tool for anyone and everyone, including you.
Gasuda.
The Urdinal Resource Library is a massive compendium of over 6 million articles, like entry number 4892 on
GUrRL, the guide to the Urdinal Resource Library, is written, directed, and produced by Vvinni Gagnepain. The associate producer is Andrew Gingrich. The sound mixer is Stephen Holliger, and music is by Roll Music. Jason Ely is 1, Gabby Monroy is 2, and Kevin Dolan is 6. Follow us on social media. Urdguide, URD Guide, on Instagram, Blue Sky, and YouTube. Rate, review, and subscribe on any podcast app that allows you to. And other than that, please stay warm out there.